What's up, everyone? Thralls Metal here once again. I'm the Nick.
And I'm Jammin' John.
And we have an album review for you. Now, this one technically came out last year in mid-December, but it didn't come out until January 17th here, so we're reviewing it now. We're going to go over Revel of Flesh's new album, The Hour of the Avenger. This came out technically on the 6th of December last year, but here it came out the 17th on War Anthem Records. This band's from Germany. They formed in 2011, and they are pretty much straight up Entombed worship, or at least they were, because that name, the band's name, is actually taken from Entombed's Left Hand Path, the song Revel in Flesh. This is their 5th full length, and this is a little bit of a change for them. Their last album definitely favored a little bit more melodic death metal, and this one continues the trend.
Starting off with the opening track, Hour of the Avenger, the title track, it's kind of generic sounding, to be honest. The production is definitely a little thin, although very bass heavy.
Very bass heavy, from what I hear. I didn't get a chance to jam this in my car, but Jammin' did.
Nick and I both have pretty decent sound systems in our car. As we, listen to a lot of music, we want to actually hear it. And in my car, listening to it, the bass was so heavy that the snare drum disappears in the mix. So,
that's pretty heavy.
yeah. Again, it's a very generic sounding, kind of straightforward song. Hypocrisy vocals.
Yes.
All the way.
He sounds spot on like Peter Tägtgren, especially the high vocals as the high screams. For me, like in terms of the production, what I got was they've always had this big, massive Swedish death metal tone, the buzzsaw. This one, it definitely seems like it's dialed back a bit.
Yeah, like the guitars don't have any grit to them. It
Not
sounds
much.
really like treble heavy.
It still sounds heavy, and you can still make out that they are still going for that Swedish death metal tone. It's just very thin this time. It kind of reminded me of a band like Dawn of Disease, which is a band that started off doing pretty much like Entombed worship and Dismember worship, and then slowly started to move into melodic death metal territory, which is definitely where they are now. They're kind of closer to Dark Tranquility than anything else.
Yeah.
And I think this album was trying to go for something like Evocation. Evocation, I think, is a great band that really kind of balances that whole Gothenburg and Stockholm sound. But for the most part, this album just misses. The next track, My Trial, is very much the same as the opening track.
Yeah, in fact, the key that the riff is in on the opener of this track is the exact same key that the last song is in. And it's got almost the same structure to it.
The only real variance I picked up on that track was the opening riff is a little bit more punkish. It's like a little bit D-beatish, but the rest of the song is very much like the first track. It really has no variance. You don't really get a change of pace until the third track, Blood Oath, which honestly was the first one that really kind of captured my interest. I was really not into these first two tracks, and that's not a good thing if you're not into the opening tracks. Those are generally the pace setters. Those are the ones.
Generally, that's where when you start a record,
the
generally
hook.
you want to come out swinging, so you have something to look forward to. Blood Oath at least gave forth finally a little bit of variance as far as at least the opener riff. It
was more mid-tempo. The lead melodies were definitely a bit better on there. I thought it was kind of closer to like maybe like Finnish Death Doom in spots, which I thought was kind of cool. Like kind of remind me a bit of like Ripikolu when we saw him in MDF.
Yeah.
Or even earlier Morphus. It kind of gets a little generic towards the end because it really starts sounding like an Amon Amarth song, and then it becomes.
Although there is a little piece of heaviness in the middle, it doesn't last real long.
No,
it's by the time you actually latch onto it, it switches back to the same pace of the album.
And while I thought the lead work was nice in this, it was pleasant, it was catchy. It was unfortunately just something I feel like I've heard a million times before and executed better. And unfortunately, that is kind of the theme for a lot of this album.
The next in line was the
nihilistic
nothingness. The song's just not good.
It's bad. It really is. Like, honestly, it feels generic right from the opening, let's fucking go. And it's just so kitschy, and it sounds like this watered down, like, Children of Bodom song, or like they were trying to be both Dismember, but also Hammerfall at the same time, and the two did not mix well.
No.
Like, I get it, you want to try some different things, and in terms of variety, At least, Blood Oath and this one, they definitely tried some different things, but it didn't necessarily work. And this just came off really cheesy.
Yeah.
It did not work. I really just flat out didn't like this song.
Yeah, next in line was Sky Burial. The opening is real cool. It's got a really kind of melodic, ambient feel to it.
Paradise Lost.
Yeah.
Like, it really reminded me of that.
But as with most of this album, it doesn't stick around. Like, it would have been cooler if they had ran with that ambience and tried to switch up the song dynamic a little bit. After that riff, it never really switches back.
It stagnates.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. There is a cool little melody in here that reminds me of Castlevania for whatever fucking reason, just because I'm a fucking man-child.
There you
I
have
thought, it was a decent track. Honestly, the first track I really loved was the next track, Death Blow.
Mm-hmm.
This reminded me of their older material. Now, I mean, I get the fact that they kind of almost are a tribute band for early Swedish death metal, but they executed really well, especially on those first 3 albums. I really enjoy those. This sounded very much like those. Maybe a little bit of Melodeath kind of squeaked in there, but it wasn't the main theme. This song was energetic. I was very thankful for the amount of energy it brought, because this album was really starting to lose me
Yeah,
at
it
this
was
point.
like a refreshing change.
Oh.
Which is, should, I guess, happen on the midpoint of a record anyway.
And the next track, Pervert and Speed Kill, actually brings in some blast beats. The only time it really appears in this album, which was nice and refreshing. It kind of gets heavier in this little 1-2 punch between that and Death Blow. Now, we had to look up what Pervertin was, just because I really wasn't sure what that was like. Are they talking about perverts and just spelled it wrong?
Right.
Turns out it's fucking World War II speed, or German soldiers.
Yep, used to treat narcolepsy.
Yeah, it's a real interesting little nugget of history there with this one. But this one was a stronger track. It wasn't necessarily great, but I like the fact that they brought some energy towards the middle, because between the next 2 tracks, Wayfarer and Skull Sacrifice, it unfortunately gets dull again.
Although there is a meaty breakdown in the Wayfarer.
Yeah, but it doesn't last.
But it doesn't last. Again, nothing really. Every time they tried to change the sound or the vision of where the song went, it just quickly turned around and went back home.
I love melodic death metal. I've been listening to it years, and there are definitely great bands that know how to do this. It's just that I think they just get sidelined. Like, they get in this cool little riffy moment, like, we could change up here. It's like, no, maybe take that moment and really kind of work it, add a lead melody on top of it. And it just kind of loses me here. The Wayfarer is a little long too, and it isn't necessarily that long on the track. It's like a little bit over 4 minutes, but it feels long, and that's not a good feeling. And Skull Sacrifice just feels like a filler track, really. Like, it has some energetic parts, but they don't really last very long.
It's in the opening. It's got an
about
upbeat opening, but that's it.
But yeah, that's about it. Like, I just feel like it was like, all right, well, we're going to throw in a kind of an Unleashed-ish song real quick and then move on. This album is like 44 minutes long, too, so there really wasn't need for a filler track, really. Now, I have to say, I like the last track, The Nightbreed.
Yep.
This one, they took all those death doomy moments that kind of popped up periodically on this album and really worked it into one song.
Yeah, this song overall has kind of a more doom feel to it. In fact, the opening of this song is real doomy, and then it switches for a minute to the overall pace of the record, but it holds on to that doom feel throughout the song.
And that was, like, pretty much, like, I was listening to this, like, why didn't they do this in some of the earlier tracks? Like, there are parts that carry on, and then instead of abandoning them, they actually throw in, like, some cool dynamics on top of it, and they made those parts memorable. And it just kind of made me go back to the earlier tracks, like, they could have used bits that they used in this song here, because this was a solid song. It's the longest song on here, too. It's 6 minutes long, and this one was interesting. This one was a good song. I thought it was a solid way to close out the album. Minus the Motorhead cover at the end, which I thought was pretty good. Rock Out. It's a solid Motorhead song, and I kind of like the Swedish, death metal sound with the cover of it. It's faithful. But as far as an actual closer, Nightbreed was solid. Overall, this album was a bit of a chore to listen to. Like, I was kind of bored with it in parts. There were parts that definitely got to me, like, in terms of excitement, like parts in Blood Oath I liked. I really liked Death Blow. I thought that was a really good song. But in terms of holding my interest, this album really didn't do it.
Yeah, it's just really lackluster. Like, when I was jamming it in the car on my way to an appointment earlier, it ended up being background noise. It ended up going from taking my attention and just, I was like, well, it's just on. Nothing really jumped out at me when I jammed it, which is not a good sign. So
yeah, that was my main issue with it. So overall, I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. The songs that I liked in here, I really did like, but overall, it just came down to certain moments within songs that I liked, but often they weren't really carried through, and that was kind of my main issue. It's just kind of a their album. Like, it feels like maybe half of a good album, maybe a solid EP if they trimmed off some of this stuff.
Right.
But not necessarily a great album.
Yep. I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I can give it 2 stars based on the fact that I don't have a Mellow Death album out, so good for you guys. But I mean, there is just nothing really to it. I like songs that have variance to them and dynamic to them, and not the same sounding stuff over and over again. And like Nick said too, the couple songs that I did like, they were cool, but it still, even the songs I did like still had enough of the filler of the rest of the album sound in it to kind of even knock that out. So I'm gonna give it 2.
So if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And also, we have a giveaway going on right now. We're going to link that video down in the description for a Cryptopsy hoodie. So the whole idea is for us to get to 1,000 subs. When we get to 1,000 subs, one of you lucky viewers is going to get a Cryptopsy hoodie.
Right? And to celebrate that, I wore my Cryptopsy shirt today. So, yep.
So yeah, definitely subscribe, like, all that stuff. And we'll be back because we do shit like this all the time.
All the time.
Catch you guys later.
Take care.